Let's take it back in time for this one. Welcome back to Lizard of Doom. I am Max. Now, sometimes you can get a little burnt out with the hobby that you're working on and you need something to freshen you up. This for me recently has been retro orcs. I have been perusing eBay and picking up a few bits here and there for a personal project that's pretty much just for me. But I want something to display these on, maybe put in a game with these retro orcs because I'm going to put them on modern bases. More on that coming up later, but this is on the terrain that I'm going to make for this army that I am starting in my own time and just doing for me, a nice little passion project just to get the juices flowing again. So I've been looking at the retro orc scene and I've been thinking about the terrain. A lot of the terrain looked like this, a lot of just foam rocks, and there's a few little bits that caught my eye. These type of buildings. This video is sponsored by the Creality Falcon 2, the laser cutter that I've used in a lot of previous terrain videos. But this time I'm going to be using the same terrain that I used for my jungle build, and I'm not putting the texture on it. It's meant to be desert buildings, but I'm going to be using them for this. The terrain that I've used for that has these nice blocky shapes. It's going to be perfect, but I want to do it a little bit brighter than those images. I want to get that really yellow orc colour that gives me the nostalgic vibes that I'm looking for in on this terrain. So give my like a little tickle and help me grow this channel by clicking that subscribe button down there. You make me grow. The Creality Falcon 2 laser engraver has been the biggest supporter of this channel and I've really put it through its paces. I've actually got to service it soon, if you can tell by the state of the guard on the front of it there. Not because it's not working, just because it looks a bit grubby. This thing is the most reliable machine I have in my arsenal to create miniature stuff here in my workshop. It's genuinely a lot of fun to use and incredibly useful, especially for making terrain. So if you think that you would like to own one of these, there is a link down in the description below. If you go through that link and get one of these for yourself, there is a slight kickback to the channel. So you are supporting me by getting one of these and having a lot of fun with it. The machine is fast, it's easy to use. I mentioned it needs a service and I'm really confident that I could just do that myself. That's how simple the construction of this machine is. Thank you Creality Falcon 2 laser engraver for sponsoring this channel yet again. It is because of them that I am able to buy a prize for the competition video next week. So they support this channel. Go and have a look at their stuff down below. Thank you very much, Creality Falcon 2. Once the Falcon 2 had done its work, I had these lovely buildings. There's a bit of PTSD looking at these because I had such a bad time making the jungle terrain, but I was looking forward to this. I'd chosen some interesting shapes and extended the exteriors. You notice here this large area. What could that be for? Well, I'll show you. I was going to make this a little bit more orky. I've been messing around with some filament printing stuff this week and thought while I'm not good at it, I could use this time to make orc terrain because it doesn't matter if it's a little bit jank because it's orc terrain. So I printed up some orky bits of metal, some barriers, and this rotating claw. I also got the Necromunda market looking kit to get these bits out of there and make it look like a working orc market. This was to enhance the laser cut terrain. With all the bits cut out and prepped and printed and ready, I wanted to make sure I was paying homage to the retro orcs, but still kind of doing it in a modern way. So I was going to use modern techniques as well as the modern stuff I'd used to make this terrain and kind of tweak it a little bit so it's a little bit simpler. The paint job wouldn't involve layers of weathering and all kinds of nonsense. It would just be straightforward putting down colour. Primed in white, this was going to give me the best chance of getting the brightest retro looking orc terrain I could get. I then masked off a line around the top of the buildings so I could put some cool orky markings there in the future. This would be stuff like check markings and triangles and maybe a go faster stripe on a building. That seems very orky to me. I was going to use something a little bit different than the normal paint I use through the airbrush to get its nice bright colour. We all know yellow is quite a hard paint to get some consistent colour with, but this was going to be different. I made sure it was all sealed because the next thing I would be using was some acrylic ink. The yellow ink would be the main base and then the orange ink would be a shadow at the bottom. It took about 4 coats of this yellow to get a consistent bright colour, but when I did, boy was it bright. This can be seen from the moon, it's so bright. It's one of the nicest yellows I've ever painted, and because we're doing retro terrain here, I'm not going to be doing much else to it. I'm going to be leaving it nice and bright and just using that orange airbrushed in the bottom corners of it for the nice shadow effect on this, to give it some variance, so it's not just one big block of yellow. Later on, when I do the brown of the ground, I'm not going to worry too much if it's splashing up onto the walls a tiny bit. This will add to the kind of ombre effect of the walls going from bright yellow to orange and then down to brown. Also, I could not forget the insides of these buildings. These are fully playable interiors because when I make this on the Creality Falcon 2 laser engraver, I can laser cut it how I want, so the roofs are removable. And here we have the final piece. All its yellow done, and time to move on to a very exciting reveal. Has it worked? Has it not? This is what we like to refer to in Britain as squeaky bum time. The peel was daunting, and as it came around the corner, it would reveal that it had spilt a little bit. But overall, it was okay. I'd also thoroughly painted my hand with yellow and orange ink, and that took over a day to scrub off, but that's by the by. The white strip was alright. It was usable. The way I would cover these little bits where it had spilt would be with the designs that I was going to paint over the top with some black. I was going to be using Vallejo black to do this, but first, to make sure I got it in the right place, I would use this weathering pencil from AK to quickly sketch it out, because this weathering pencil is water soluble, so that means I can get a damp brush and remove the bits that I don't like as I go. So this is a good non-permanent way to sketch out freehand designs as we go. I'm also not too worried about it being perfect. This is meant to be retro terrain, you know, like homemade stuff you would have made in the 90s. So in that style, I think it's better if it's not completely perfect and things are a little bit wonky. When it was painted in with black though, it looked pretty good. A little bit wonky in places, but I kind of like it. It suits the vibe that I'm going for here. I am very happy with how this has turned out so far. I'm actually starting a series on Patreon, my first Patreon exclusive content, where I'm painting up a retro orc army for myself. So it won't be commentated over, it'll just be a nice chill video with some music and me painting up some retro orcs. I'm trying to add value to my Patreon with this because I love you guys for supporting me and I feel like I need to give you a little bit something more. So that's a new series starting over on the Lizard of Doom Patreon. That's the main bulk of the building done. Really simple, really quick. I think it looks really good as well. So now on to the other little bits on this building left. Catachan flesh and Sylvaneth bark would be the paints I would use to do the woodwork on this building. The Catachan flesh is a little bit purple, so it contrasts nicely with the yellow building. And then the Sylvaneth bark just dry brushed in the middle to give it a little bit of wear on this door without doing too much to it and making it look too modern. A little bit of oak brown for the earth here. I would actually decide later that this wasn't quite dark enough for what I wanted, so I would go over this with some agrax, which added a little bit of depth to the sanded area as well. The way I have based this is classically how I used to do basing about 10 years ago. It's just sand mixed with some fine rocks, PVA glued to the bottom here. This is how I used to base all my miniatures when I started the hobby. And I'm glad to get back to it. It's actually quite fun and easy to do and looks quite good. After that, I dry brushed this with the Sylvaneth bark as well, just to pick up those rocks to make them look like bigger clumps of earth and pick up the sand texture as well. And of course, we can't forget those bits I FDM printed to go on this. I painted them up off camera, simple sponging, metallics and reds, keeping that orky vibe, and I think they look fantastic on this. But before the final reveals, let me say thank you to my Patreons for supporting me. If you would like to join, I am starting this retro orc army over there, and it's going to be a lot of fun for me and it's going to be a nice chill experience to watch the video, hopefully. I really want to do something that adds a little bit of value to the Patreon to reward the people who help me run this channel. Speaking of people who help me run this channel, thank you Creality Falcon 2 for sponsoring this video. Check them out in the links down below. It would be really helpful for me if you do go and follow those links and have a little look. That is all this week. I will be back next week with the Easter Kit Bash competition, so subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Leave a little comment for the algorithm and leave a little like for the like throne. Remember, it is not a pile of shame, it is a pile of future fun. See you next time, kids. Peace.